Hey there, welcome to another one-on-one interview episode of my podcast, A Founders Lab. Today, I'm going to be talking to someone I think you're going to find really, really interesting. If you're a business owner or an operator who's been feeling stuck, like your systems aren't scaling with you, your team is disengaged, or you're spending more time putting out fires than leading, this episode could be a game changer for you. I'm joined by Tana Plewes, author of The Possibility Process and a longtime collaborator of Michael E. Gerber, The Mind Behind eMyth. Tana's been helping businesses build future-proof systems that align people, purpose, and performance without burning out the founder or losing control of vision. Today, we're going to dive into why human behavior needs to be baked into your business systems, how to shift from reactive operations to intentional scalable growth. I find out that she and I both had a Marine background, which was an interesting piece of information I did not know about her previously. We also get into the formula that she uses to unlock breakthrough results, communication, collaboration, leadership times systems of service. If you ever wondered how to stop being the bottleneck in your business and start building a company that runs with or without you, stick around. You're going to walk away with a brand new way of thinking, plus real strategies that you're going to start applying today. She also shares some really cool resources that you'll find really helpful and useful. So let's get into it. Hey, Tana, thank you so much and welcome to Founders Lab. Great having you here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
You're welcome. So what I'd like to do, I like to ask just a little bit about, I know you and I spoke just a few days ago, but give me some insight into or help others understand more in your background and how you got to where you are right now.
So I had a 20-year Marine career, Marine operations, and which was a woman in a non-traditional industry. I started in underwater seafood harvesting for exotic seafoods for export markets overseas. And I loved it. I fell in love with the ocean. I'm originally from the Prairie provinces in Saskatchewan. So it was quite an unusual career shift. I just fell in love with it and then just kind of rose through the ranks and got into leadership. I ended up getting business diploma and later in life, a master's degree in leadership. Just that people side and the operations together have always been my jam.
Well, that's great. And it's obvious in the work that you've been doing as I've been kind of learning more about your business and the different types of clients that you work with. So one of the things I noticed is that obviously you do work with business owners. They're stuck, they're overwhelmed. What I want to know from your perspective, what's really going on under the surface? How does the possibility process help uncover or resolve that?
Well, there's generally a few different ways the train can go off the track, so to speak. People issues. Sometimes people get stuck. Right? We're people, we're human, and we can have grief and loss. And, we try to draw this nice little Les Nessman line down the center between our personal life and career, but we can't in reality. So there's a lot of things in people relationship side that can impact performance, whether we own a company or work in one. None of us are immune to performance issues when we're impacted. And the other big area, and I call that invisible barriers. It's the psychological stuff we can't see, but it has a massive impact. And structural impediments. And the structural impediments are the systems or lack of systems. Because if you don't have any, it's like, how do you get up a hill? It works a lot better if you have stair stringers, right? And if a company is missing vital systems and processes, then there's this assumption that you should just know. Well, people are not mind readers. We're people. Back to that again. So those are the two halves that I see are often missing. And it's funny, there is a very definitive correlation between the two. And what I mean by that is during my master's, I did a lot of research with looking at the difference between just ordinary employers and those that truly scaled to have extraordinary companies.
Right.
What were they doing differently? And that's essentially a lot of the companies that, we're a family culture, we're a family, and they had over focus on getting along and they didn't have healthy conflict. They just wanted to be friends. They stayed small. And the companies that put in a healthy structure. So structure can be like, it can be soul sucking. So I'm not talking about soul sucking systems, but they can be incredibly empowering for knowledge transfer and learning and development. So those are the two areas that I see people are missing, one or the other.
So the possibility process, and just explain that because I didn't give you a chance to, is expand on how you came to develop the possibility process and really the core functions within it.
Well, I was a master licensee for Canada for Michael Gerber, the author of the E-Myth. So any of your business listeners will likely have heard of the E-Myth, if not read it and scaled, because he's considered the grandfather of the franchise revolution in North America. So I was his master licensee in Canada for an entrepreneurial incubator that he had, and was part of his global leadership team. But I started to see that, and I got into that position because I understand systems. But then when I was there, it was like, something's missing. Like, it's that human element, the relationship element, that I felt like I had that side of it taken it that much farther. And so that's what inspired me, is like, I need to articulate what it is that I've been doing differently to incorporate that people and the complexity of human beings working together. So that's what inspired me too, because I had had a series of, probably 40 really pioneering projects. But it was a doing. I was like a human doing. I knew how to do it. But ask me, how did you do, which people had done? How did you do what you did? Tell me how you did that. I didn't have any words. I just knew how to do it. So that was my hurdle to get what's in your head out into the world, into a language that other people can understand.
It is interesting. And I definitely appreciate the getting stuck in the process part of it for sure. But then you also have these different personalities. So I know when you're working with an organization and you've got the different personalities that are trying to, some are more structured than others, especially if it's a smaller organization, they don't necessarily, maybe they were hired for their skills, but there's also this maybe rigidity they have up against that process that would help or enable the company to scale. So how do you, getting rid of anybody from the company, but how do you sort of level set everybody so that they understand? Is that part of when you coming into a company that to kind of help facilitate that?
That falls under invisible barriers. Like, we don't realize that we all kind of speak different languages. What I've found over the years that has the biggest impact of all is we all have our preferred orientation to detail. So if you are a high level visionary, with your eye on the future, and you're talking to a technician that wants to get into the weeds of this keystroke and that, they do not mix. And that's built on Gerber's foundation of the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, not as roles as much as orientation to detail and what you need to see. They often can clash. They have different needs. Neither side can explain what's not working about this conversation, but the frustration goes up nonetheless. And one of the ways visually to kind of see it is literally with your head. A technician is looking down. They're looking at the keyboard. A watchmaker is looking at the components on the workbench. Like, a technician is looking down at specific detailed components, whether it be digital or analog world. A manager is looking out at resources, timelines, like, how are we doing, right? They're scanning the horizon, but they're looking at the horizon line. And the visionary is like, never mind all that. We're going there. They are looking up and out. And it's hard to adjust to someone else's orientation to detail because it's foreign.
That's fascinating. So true. I certainly didn't think about it, but the way that you're describing, certainly the technician, their world is right in front of them too. You talk about congruence and the need for emotional resonance in systems design. And I work with a lot of B2B companies, especially technical or in, manufacturing sectors. How can they build systems that actually inspire their teams, not just control them?
The best way and the easiest way are the same. Involve them. Do it as a team. This is not like building systems is a ground up initiative. It's not a top down. You can have it's a top down decision perhaps that it needs to be done, but the voice is in how do we build? How do we construct? What do we need to pay attention to? What do we need to include? All the areas where a system will fall apart are because a top-down perspective failed to take into account the direct users of the system or process. And that's literally where it falls apart. So there are ways through professional facilitation to bring those voices in a timely, time-sensitive manner. That doesn't mean, I can't stress this enough, that does not mean sitting around a committee meeting, having meetings where people want to stick pins in their eyes rather than go. We orchestrate experiences that cascade one into the other like a chain reaction to involve the team in meaningful ways with minimal downtime. So, and that's like an art form. Makes it so much easier because otherwise you've got, managers and people that feel that sense of responsibility, like I should know what to do. I should know is such a fallacy. Like it's not even true. We find out together. It lightens the workload. And then people have a sense of ownership. Like you can see your ideas materialize in the final execution. It's like, that was my idea. That carries a lot of weight that no directive from the top down can ever carry.
I think pretty obviously too, builds rapport and team congruency, and it facilitates that where you don't have to necessarily do a team collaborating event off site, whereas this could be something where it really could facilitate that, create this sense of oneness in the company. I've been in a part of so many different size organizations, but I can totally see this in anything on a smaller scale.
And transparency is key to that, because even if you're not part of the meeting, if little touches are done to make you feel included, even if you didn't attend, it's inclusive. You know that, and you've got the ability to provide input and feedback. Feedback loops can be miraculous in themselves if the environment is prepared such that they know that it's truly desired. It's not just we do have a lot of feedback loops in today's society that only tell us what we want to hear. That's not what I mean. Tell the truth. And somebody cares.
When you mentioned, about your collaboration with Michael Gerber, what was one lesson from your time with him that fundamentally changed how you approach systems or leadership? And how, if it has, how has it shaped the work that you've been doing with your clients?
It's kind of ironic, but when I was young, I was just that doer. I just learned by doing. I'd do a good job and I'd promote it to the next one. I started that way. And so for me, having been a female in the prairie provinces, moving into a male-dominated industry, the one thing I knew, there was a few things that I knew at a very young age. Don't stereotype me. Don't put me in a box. Don't make me the cook on the ship. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was a certified able-bodied seaman. Don't stereotype me. When the E-Myth first came out, my accountant was like, oh, you need to read that book. And I did, but I didn't love it at the time. I liked it, but I saw systems the way he described them in a franchise, and he used McDonald's as a metaphor all the time. And I saw that as stereotyping me. I saw systems as being constraining. You're going to put me in a little box and tell me exactly what I have to do. When I met him in person and he set the record straight and he's like, it's not a box. It's a ladder. And it was like, oh, of course. And that's exactly what I had been doing, is climbing the ladder. In fact, more so than I even imagined, because I didn't have a good memory. I wasn't a good student in school. And so when I would get a job that was beyond my abilities and I knew it, what did I do? I built my own training manual as I went. I was building systems and processes, which other people could see. And that's why I got promoted, because they could see that they had visible evidence that I knew what I was doing and that my systems worked. So I get promoted, but I didn't know that. I didn't connect the dots.
Interesting.
So it was pretty funny. So it was like, I was just so ready to take Michael Gerber to task. And it's like, oh yeah.
Let's try. It's interesting. You were talking about your time, your Marine time. I was in the Navy. So when you're talking about being in a very male dominated, I'm like, yep, I know all about it. That was one of my first forays after college doing some of that work, but that was also interesting. But yes, a very male dominated, and being out with all of them. but also get thinking about the diverse workplace environments. Talk about between a peer in a corporate environment, completely two different places of work, but it's the teamwork and it's the ability to work collaboratively, and their systems in all of those, certainly in the Navy. It's all required. It's just a matter of where is your workplace. Do you have a particular favorite type of client that you like to work with? Is it a type of company or personality or something that you maybe were more drawn to?
Well, I'm definitely drawn to people that are hungry to learn. And for me, there is, my website is possibility.ca. I'm all about possibility and creating what's never been done before and pioneering. However, that can only be done if the leaders are at that pivotal threshold ready for change. Over the years, I have met professionals that they just want to appear to have it all together. They've got, as Brene Brown would say, they're armored up. It doesn't work. We have to be willing to get messy, have the real conversations, like real conversations. You need that human connection to build the kinds of systems and processes that will transform culture and performance. That being on the threshold of change, that willingness to even explore, acknowledge, if your reality is held in place that you are not happy with, then it's something that we are doing to hold it together. We're patterned beings. We're going around in circles. If we don't like that pattern, it's us. It looks like it's out there. It's them. It's that. It's, the economy. It's the politicians. And yeah, they do have an influence, but at the end of the day, it's what's going on inside that matters. So more than anything else, I need to know that we can connect and really have that foundation, because we're going into the unknown. So just like you in the Marines, you want to go in with people that they have your back. You're
Absolutely.
Going in together.
Is part of your process determining whether this could potentially be an ideal candidate to work with or client to work with? Do you have specific questions that pinpoint a direction as to whether this would be a good fit for you or not? Because the work that you do with them, this is not a week worth of work. This is a significant chunk of your time for sure, and theirs as well. So is there, whether it's a question or a conversation that you have with them, that where you just know this is going to be a good fit for them and you?
I'd say a lot of that would be exploring beliefs, limiting beliefs about who they are, how they feel they need to be, and how willing are they to challenge some of those beliefs, to acknowledge that maybe it's a limiting belief. It's not actually real, right? And sometimes that happens too. We can project onto other people. They'll never change. They'll never do that. How do we know? Like, have they actually had the opportunity? Has the environment been prepared such that they do have an opportunity to make an informed and powerful choice? Yeah. Let's let them decide.
That's interesting. On the same token, they have those limiting beliefs up front. I guess you could engage with them and say, do you understand that there are certain things we're going to have to overcome? And these are those things. Are you willing to make that change? And then for obvious reasons, if they're not, then that's where it ends, I guess.
That conversation too is something that can't be conceptual. I do an assessment that gives me feedback on particular things that I'm looking for. And it's in that first initial conversation that I can use tangible examples from that company, start to look at, is this real? Could it be a belief? Just see that willingness and that openness to look, and change begins with a shift of perspective.
I have a list of questions that I've been asking my guests. If you could give a warning label about entrepreneurship based on your personal experience, what would it say?
Have the conversations you're avoiding. Address the elephant in the room. So often when I see that a company has gotten off track, the owner or the manager, they knew there was an issue that needed to be addressed a long time ago, but they didn't want it. And there's lots of reasons, and lots of very good and valid reasons. That's not going to get the job done. That's my number one place where I see people get hung up. There is an issue. It is impacting the business or the team or the culture, and they don't want to address it.
Looking back, was there a big break moment that seemed minor at the time, but it ended up really being pivotal to your growth?
Yeah. It's funny when you said you didn't notice at the time. So when I was in my 20s, to the later half of my Marine career, I was the property and contracts administrator at the Steveston Harbour Authority, which is Canada's largest commercial harbor. I had a boss who, like a badass boss, he was a retired RCMP staff sergeant. He was a chain of command structure man from head to toe. I am young. I'm in a role. I'm in a management role under like somebody else had hired me. And he came in as that somebody was dismissed after 1 year of employment, but they'd hired me. So to him, he's in there as a cleanup man. Yeah. And he said, I'm going to make you secretary, which I've already said secretary was not something that I was open to being, considering I was the only one on the entire team that had sea time and a Marine career. Yeah. But I spent 5 years under his leadership and it was rigorous. I have never to this day met anyone with a higher standard or more unreasonable expectations that the job get done and it get done right. So at 26, I led and orchestrated my first full transformation. I was responsible for $50 million in property and assets, and I had to write every policy, procedure, correspondence, leases, licenses, complex that included the government of Canada, land swaps, property development, like all of that, leases, tenants, big BC well-known companies were and I'm 26 years old. But his thing was, you figure it out or I'll find somebody who will. My survival instinct is very deep. I'd weathered 2 hurricanes, not just one in my previous Marine career. And I just like, okay, here's another hurricane. What are we going to do? At the time, it was like, I just have this badass boss, but I didn't realize things I learned at such a young age that people don't get exposed to that. I know people that have had their entire career and not had exposure to that level of accountability for building, creating, researching, developing. And he's still in my life. He's 80 years old, but it was very transformational experience for me. Good and bad. Like I had a lot of bad things to say about it at the time, but I am very grateful for the experience for sure. Yeah.
Lots of 26-year-olds could probably benefit from having a badass boss like that. I could definitely see that would be, a huge help to the rest of your career for sure.
And actually it did shape the development of the possibility process too, because I love about that tenacious demand for high performance. That was like, whoa, it was so gutsy, right? It's so unreasonable. So that part I really admired and respected. But the way I felt as a young manager, and in fact, a young mom, like I can tell you all the places I threw up on my way to work when I was pregnant, but I didn't miss a meeting. I didn't ever call in sick. I wasn't late. But as, again, a mom, I wouldn't have done that. I would not do that again. And I really do counsel young women to not get caught up in that performance loop. How do we have high performance and not have people feel that way? And that's where I did deep dive into those difficult conversations. Have the conversation, address the elephant in the room, big focus in some of the puzzle pieces I was trying to figure out where they all fit.
All right, now moving into digital marketing, because that's what I largely do. I'm always interested in understanding when I'm speaking to a founder, what's one digital marketing mistake that you wish you had avoided or someone on your team when starting out? And has it shaped anything today or anything that you do differently today?
The mistake that I made was I fell into the trap of aesthetics and design. It looks great. Yeah, but does it work? And it's easy because it's the thing that I see. It's the thing you see first. It's that first impression. And I overestimated the value of that because really there's a lot of websites that don't look anywhere near as nice as many of the ones that I've had. And they outperform me like 1,000 to 1. So SEO and what you do absolutely has been my mistake, an oversight.
That is not too uncommon, especially to come across, but we're hoping to change that. Well, and you learned, which is the important part of it. Now we get into what are 3 resources? It could be books, software, YouTube channel, a podcast, anything that you would recommend and why.
Well, I've got one book right here. So this one is Glenn Cioni, leadership consultant, Overcoming the 5 Dysfunctions of Team. I mentioned that I do an assessment early on in the process, and it's not exclusively based on that, but the 5 dysfunctions is something that I'm quantifying, I'm looking for actively because it gives me really great feedback. And he's distilled it down to the ability to literally quantify those dysfunctions. So that was quite brilliant. That's one. I've actually got, I'll just show you. So on here, we have a resource We've got two things. Well, one thing, my book, The Possibility.
By the way, this is your website.
This is possibility.ca. Yes. And on here is a knowledge hub under resources. And in there, there's actually my book for free, like the part that we mentioned about performance DNA and the orientation to detail. They literally could type in the search bar, performance DNA, and go straight there. And then we also have bead magnet in here, a resource that looking at the challenges that family businesses have. Because again, we're talking those relationships, working with business owners. There we go. So in here, the 10 warning signs your family business might be at risk. This again does explore those more tenuous, challenging on the system side and also on the difficult conversations that might not be taking place side. And that's a free resource. And also there's assessment. It's not the full assessment that I was mentioning that I do with organizations, but there certainly is an assessment on there as well. And it's free. And again, it's just designed to give feedback live as you're doing it. So you can kind of like think through from that perspective of, am I even ready for change, right? Yeah. What are some of the areas that I need to look at and consider? Because really it's not for everyone. It's not for the total transformation of performance and culture. It is not for the faint of heart.
Well, thank you. Those are great resources. I'm going to make sure that I put the links to certainly your website and those other resources in the show notes. If there's any way anybody wants to reach you besides going to your website, is there any other way that they can get in touch with you?
Email. Tana at possibility.ca. LinkedIn, Tana Plewes. Yeah. Plewes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tana. This was a lot of fun. I'm really happy that you were able to join me on a Founders Lab. As I said, I will drop all the links into the show notes. Thank you.
Perfect.
Janet Bartoli. And if you want to learn how to amplify your brand, get my free 3-part video training at bartoliconsulting.com/amplify. Any links mentioned are listed in the show notes. I want to answer any of your digital marketing questions. So here's what you have to do. Just drop those into the comments, into the review section or below this video and keep showing up.